Thank you very much, Brita, and good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, in particular in this very awe-inspiring setting, and to benefit from the shared wisdom in this room as we address one of the most important challenges, I think, of our time, ensuring that technological change, and in particular the rapid rise of AI, is a gift and not a curse for our children. So I come prepared to tackle this challenge with a new practical tool, the Children in AI Design Code, which I hope most of you have at your tables. And not because it will provide all of the answers. I would say it's a version 1.0, and perhaps working together we can get quite quickly to a version 2.0. But because there is no time to waste and we urgently need practical frameworks and tools to drive change in the here and now. So the code is a start. It's a step-by-step protocol developed by a wide-ranging group of experts, some of whom are in this room, for considering children and their rights throughout the life cycle of an AI system. But before I say more about the code, let me take a step back. For more than a decade, the Five Rights Foundation has been working directly with children around the world. We currently have more than 200 youth ambassadors across more than 50 countries. So we do work with and for children and represent their views. And in doing so, we have been witness to children navigating a digital world that is willfully neglectful of the vulnerabilities associated with age. Children live streaming to millions from their bedrooms on services that unthinkingly allow adult strangers to direct message them. Children routinely seeing violent pornography before they experience their first kiss. Children manipulated and their agency eroded, leaving them anxious and depressed, with their self-esteem and too often their health in tatters. Children who have spent untold hours passively fixated on low-grade content, deliberately designed to monopolize their time, resulting in what they call brain rot. At Five Rights, ours is not a tech-negative view. On the contrary, we are tech enthusiasts. Children's digital experience, as we've heard, is not a result of the technology itself, but it does reflect the priorities of those who own, build, and deploy digital technology, including AI. An AI system can regulate a preterm baby's heartbeat. It can help translate education materials into minority languages, or it can game a child into spending money on virtual products. An AI chatbot can provide answers to an urgent question, or it can suggest that a 13-year-old murder someone who is bullying them, or tell them how to seduce a person twice their age. A facial recognition system may be used to access free school meals, or it might deny Black children entry because it has been trained on white faces. Technology in all its forms can be designed for any number of uses or abuses, and being tech-optimistic does not mean we should accept the abuses. Recent years have been dominated by a narrative that suggests we must bear the social costs of tech as the price for its convenience and the opportunities it affords. This narrative has allowed vast companies to treat the harm to children as a negative externality on their otherwise healthy balance sheets. And even as the world struggles to mitigate known harms, we are faced with the specter of ever more powerful automated systems that will bring turbulence and change to every corner of society, whilst enriching an ever smaller number of companies. In fact, the narrative is shifting to even more dangerous terrain. To every AI problem, there is now supposedly an AI solution. But while we do not yet know the full trajectory of AI, we can be sure that determining what is and isn't in the best interests of children must not be left to tech companies that are not held democratically accountable. We must have democratic oversight, and if not in itself designed to slow innovation, it must ensure basic due diligence and product safety. We are thankfully not starting from scratch. We already have tools at our disposal. A few I will mention only. The General Comment number 25 to the Convention on the Rights of the Child requires businesses to implement and states to regulate due diligence and safety by design through all stages of digital design and operation, and ensure accountability for outcomes. Specific requirements include, for example, and I quote, ensuring that automated systems or information filtering systems are not used to affect or influence children's behavior or emotions, or to limit their opportunities for development. The UN's Governing AI for Humanity report says, and I quote, mandating child impact assessments for AI systems is essential to ensuring their suitability and safety. AI systems should be designed with children's needs in mind, incorporating safety and restriction features from the start. The Council of Europe's Framework Convention on AI requires that state parties account for the specific needs and vulnerabilities of children. And the EU's AI Act includes an outright ban, for example, on AI systems that exploit the vulnerabilities of age. So this is all positive, but we all know that for the time being, it is making little, if any, difference. Companies and governments are in a race for AI, and it's a race for data and market dominance. It is therefore a story of moving fast and breaking our children all over again, but on steroids. The Children in AI Design Code addresses the lack of action by governments and regulators by providing a roadmap for policy discussions and regulatory approaches, but it is intended to be a practical document that can guide the work of teams that include engineers, designers, privacy and security experts, researchers, and child rights advocates. Part 1 provides context to the code. Part 2 provides advice and guidance on key considerations that are relevant at all stages of the code. For example, what is the role of parents, and how to address the concept of proportionality in the context of AI regulation. Part 3 sets out the criteria by which each of the code's actions should be judged, covering safety, privacy, security, fairness, reliability, and consciously and realistically considering child development. Part 4 describes potential risks to children, and Part 5 is the code itself. It includes a checklist of key actions and guidance at each stage of the life cycle of an AI system. These are preparation, intentions, data, development, deployment, monitoring, transparency, reports and redress, retiring, and moving on. At each stage, in a similar way to other forms of risk assessment, it asks questions to surface the ways in which the system might impact on children, creates pathways for mitigation, and demands a record of decisions taken, when, why, and by whom. The final part provides useful resources, including key definitions and concepts, guidance on child and adolescent development, a summary of roles and responsibilities of team members, and snapshot case studies to illustrate how the criteria apply in practical scenarios. So in sum, the code takes quotidian and understood design practice and puts the child in the middle at each stage of design and development, asking those who build, deploy, use, and benefit from AI systems, what would you do differently if you know the end user or beneficiary is a child? The answers, if given systematically and without cynicism, act as a set of instructions to design AI with children in mind. The code is compatible with the principles and frameworks published by the global community. It articulates how they should be implemented on behalf of children as a norm. This detail can be enshrined in national laws, regulatory and technical standards. It can be enshrined in corporate and professional processes. The code addresses the here and now risks of AI systems, from economic exploitation to discrimination, emotional manipulation, and AI-fueled sexual abuse. But it also provides a framework to identify and mitigate emerging risks. And finally, the code is focused on preventable harms, but encourages all of us to invest in children's creativity, critical thinking, and resilience. Now, to some, it might feel that this level of detail, it is quite detailed, is rather superfluous in the current political environment. Many might well feel it is a waste of time, as governments are getting very quiet about AI regulation, witness the Paris summit. Faced with what can only be called bullying from the new US administration and tech oligarchs, jurisdictions from the UK and the EU to Brazil and Australia are pondering whether to go all in or to back down. Even if they are willing to face the punitive wrath of the current US administration, can they enforce their legislation for tech accountability without undermining the innovation and growth agenda that is all the more critical now that the global trading and integrated supply chain system is falling apart? The answer is that sustainable innovation and jobs depends upon taking back some control, re-establishing democratic norms and tried and tested processes for responsible innovation. It depends on setting a bar to stop the race to the bottom and create space in the market for new, better technology. And if you want to give innovators some slack in some areas, fine, but there must be a red line when it comes to children. This is because of legal and moral obligation. As the UN advisory body said, children should not be used as subjects for AI experimentation. But also because if you want to have a world-leading knowledge and innovation economy, then brain rot, eroding children's agency, their critical thinking, their self-esteem, is hardly the best strategy. Now more than ever, it is time for decisive action, for implementation and enforcement of our established laws and reinforcement of our broader democratic governance processes. The barrier to a digital world fit for children and childhood is not one of technical feasibility, but of political will. We know regulation works. In response to the Age-Appropriate Design Code and the EU's Digital Services Act, we have already seen companies make hundreds of changes that have directly benefited children, and that was mainly preempting enforcement. Now, they are waiting to see if they will be made to do more, or whether they can get away with doubling down on a mixture of scaremongering, PR, and delay tactics. It bears repeating, the barrier to a digital world fit for children and childhood is not one of technical feasibility, but of political will. Childhood is not optional, so designing AI to account for the needs of children cannot be optional. It is time to stand up for our shared democratic values and make space for children in a fair and sustainable world in which AI and childhood can both thrive. Thank you.